There is something in you that others cannot explain. They don't know why, but they feel it. The energy shifts when you enter the room. You haven't said a word, but somehow they know.
That's the kind of presence people can't fake, and most will never understand. It's not in your looks, your status, or your achievements. It's in your silence. The kind that comes from knowing exactly who you are and no longer needing the world to validate it. And this isn't about arrogance, this is about the most powerful trait of all, real, grounded self-confidence. The kind that doesn't need to be loud to be loudly felt. Because in a world that tells you to constantly prove yourself, the person who doesn't, the one who holds still, while everyone else rushes to be seen, is the one they can't look away from. Today, we're going deeper than surface-level motivation. This is about mastering the one trait that rewires how the world sees you without saying a thing. Stay with me. You're about to unlock the quiet power that changes everything. Most people think confidence is loud, it's speeches, selfies, bravado. But real self-confidence, it doesn't announce itself. It's silent, still, centered. You don't need to raise your voice when you already know your value. You don't need to prove anything when your presence says it all. True confidence isn't noise, it's undeniability. It's in the way you sit quietly while others scramble to fill the silence. The way you speak slowly when everyone else rushes to be heard. Confidence doesn't beg for attention, it creates gravity. People lean in not because you're shouting, but because there's something about you they can't quite place. That's not performance, that's power. The kind that makes others second-guess themselves without you saying a word. And what makes it unshakable is control, emotional control. You don't flinch when challenged. You don't chase when ignored. You don't explode just because someone pressed the wrong button. You stay rooted, grounded in your own identity. That restraint, that calm, that's what unnerves people the most, because the one who holds back, who doesn't need to prove anything, holds all the cards. In a world addicted to attention, the rarest kind of strength is being unbothered. That's why true confidence isn't about being seen, it's about knowing you don't need to be. You're already felt, and when they finally realize they can't figure you out, that they can't shake you, that's when you become unforgettable. Now tell me, do you really need to be loud to be powerful? Or are you already enough just as you are, quiet, grounded, and unshakably clear about your worth? The most powerful people are the ones who don't need to explain themselves. They don't chase validation. They don't argue to be understood. They know who they are, and that's enough. They move through the world like they've already decided, I belong here. That quiet certainty, that's what flips the energy in a room. It doesn't demand attention, it naturally commands it. There's something magnetic about someone who doesn't flinch when misunderstood, who doesn't over-explain, overshare, or over-apologize. They let people wonder, let assumptions float by untouched, not because they're cold, but because their identity isn't up for negotiation. You can feel it when they walk in, the stillness, the inner peace, the lack of noise. And that's the difference. Arrogance performs, alignment simply is. It's not loud, it's not defensive, it's the deep, unshakable knowing that you don't need to fit someone else's mold to be worthy of space. You stop trying to convince people of your worth and start living like it's already settled, because it is. And when that truth takes root, confidence stops being something you wear and becomes something you are. But here's the catch. Most people get it backward. They think talking more equals confidence. That the louder they are, the stronger they seem. They post every win, over-explain every move, chase attention like it's proof they matter. But the more you perform, the more cracks you reveal. You're not showing strength, you're showing your need to be seen. Real confidence isn't desperate for the spotlight. It doesn't need to convince anyone. Because when you're truly sure of yourself, the room adjusts to you. You don't push, you pull. You don't announce, you arrive. And that shift, it's quiet, effortless, powerful in a way most people can't explain but can't ignore either. Confidence doesn't audition, it owns the stage by simply walking on it. Not because it rehearsed every move or demanded applause, but because it knows its presence speaks louder than any performance ever could. The ones who stand tallest aren't always the ones who shout the loudest. They're the ones who know, deep down, they already belong. No validation required. And that knowing, that's what turns heads without trying. Stillness unsettles people. You're not reacting, you're not reaching, you're just there. Steady, present, unbothered. And that quiet presence, without effort, without explanation, disrupts the room more than the loudest voice ever could. Because in a world addicted to urgency and performance, the one who waits becomes the one everyone watches. Not because they're loud, but because they're composed. You're not trying to impress. You're not auditioning for approval. You walk in like the answer already lives in your bones. That's the difference. You don't move for validation. You move with certainty. And when that's your default, people don't just notice. You become the axis they start to orbit around. You're not withholding out of fear. You're holding back with intention because you've realized something most never do. When you stop handing over every thought, every feeling, every detail, you don't disappear. You become sharper, heavier. You become felt. Stillness isn't absence, it's power at rest. Like a chess master letting the clock tick, knowing the next move reshapes everything. The ones who master it don't rush to match the noise. They stay in rhythm with themselves, and slowly the world starts sinking to their pace, not the other way around. You don't flinch when pressure rises. You hold your gaze while everything around you trembles. You don't speak to fill silence. You don't react to tension just because it's there. You sit with it. Let it breathe. Let it stretch. And while others grow uncomfortable, you grow rooted. Because you've learned something they haven't. The pause they fear is where your power lives. While they scramble to be heard, to defend, to prove, you wait. You observe, you choose. And in that pause, the entire energy shifts. You're not trying to win the room. You are the room, that silence. It becomes your presence. The longer you hold it, the louder it echoes. Power doesn't always speak first. It doesn't always speak at all. The ones who hold back until it matters are the ones people remember, because when you do speak, it doesn't feel like volume. It feels like impact. That's not control through force. That's control through timing, clarity, and calm. The one who controls the pause doesn't just shape the conversation, they shape perception. And in a world that worships the loud, the fast, and the constant, your restraint becomes a kind of rebellion. One that commands not by noise, but by nerve. The truth? Most of us are reactive. Someone questions our worth, and we scramble to prove it. Someone throws shade, and we rush to explain ourselves. Someone flexes, and we feel the need to match their noise. But every reaction is a leak. Every defense is an energy drain. And the more we respond to things that don't deserve a response, the more we give away our power without even realizing it. There's a quiet strength in not taking the bait, in holding your fire when everything inside you wants to erupt. That's not passivity, it's control. When you resist the urge to explain, to correct, to prove, you're not backing down, you're rising above. You're saying, I know who I am, and I don't need to hand that truth over for review. It's hard, especially when your ego's on the line. But when you master the pause, when you sit in that discomfort without flinching, people notice, they respect it, because silence when chosen intentionally, shifts the balance. It stops the noise in its tracks, and in that stillness, you reclaim something most people lose far too quickly: leverage. Some people walk in and try to impress. You can see it in the way they move: loud gestures, forced smiles, desperate to be noticed. But others? They don't try. They just enter, and something changes. The mood shifts. People turn, not because of a show, but because of an energy that demands attention without ever asking for it. That's the kind of presence that can't be faked. It comes from within. One is fueled by insecurity, the need to prove. The other is anchored in certainty, the kind that doesn't ask for permission to exist. Confidence doesn't scream, it doesn't rush, it settles. It walks into a room already knowing, I don't need to take space, I am space. That kind of confidence doesn't ask to be seen, it lets people feel it. You're not invisible when you move this way, you're undeniable. That's not being overlooked, that's gravity, the quiet pull that shifts people's focus without a single word spoken. It's the art of presence without performance. And once you understand that, you stop chasing attention and start commanding it, not with volume, but with weight. Never reveal everything, never explain too much, never rush to fix how others see you. Let them wonder, let them assume, let them talk, because the moment you stop handing people the full story, they start writing their own. And in that silence, something strange happens. Their curiosity grows louder than your words ever could. People are drawn to what they can't fully grasp. When you leave gaps, they lean in. When you stop oversharing, they start watching closer. And that's the trap most fall into. They think being fully known means being respected. But too much exposure kills mystery, and without mystery, there's no intrigue, no weight, no edge. The confident don't fear being misunderstood. They don't chase clarity. They let the silence do the work. Because every time someone tries to figure you out and can't, you become a little more unforgettable. You start to take up space in their mind, not because you forced your presence, but because you withheld just enough to make them need more. Mystery isn't avoidance, it's power. It's a form of control in a world obsessed with full access. And those who master it, they walk through life rich in presence, in poise, and in mental real estate. They're not the loudest in the room, they don't posture, they don't overperform. But something about them changes the temperature when they walk in, like the energy itself takes notice. It's not luck, it's not charm, it's control. The kind of deep, invisible mastery that doesn't shout but still pulls everything toward it. You can't explain it, you just feel it. These people didn't stumble into confidence, they crafted it, slowly and intentionally, built it out of silence, out of failure, out of the decision to respond with clarity instead of chaos. They've made peace with not being understood, and that peace, that's their edge. They no longer waste energy trying to be seen. They let the weight of their presence do the work. No forced smiles, no over-explaining, just stillness, sharp and surgical, like a blade that never needs to swing to be respected. You notice them more in what they don't say, in what they choose to hold back. And the longer they remain unreadable, the more unforgettable they become. Because silence, when chosen, isn't absence, it's authority. And when someone stops leaking energy for approval, they become impossible to ignore. So when people ask how you stay calm in chaos, how you hold space without pushing, how you seem untouchable without effort, the answer is this: you stopped reacting. You started choosing. You realized your attention is a privilege, your presence is earned, and your silence, when used with precision, speaks louder than any performance ever could. That's not arrogance, that's alignment, and once you understand that, you stop chasing the world and start making the world respond to you. So ask yourself, what would change in your life if you stopped reacting? If you didn't flinch when someone pushed your buttons? If you stopped feeling the urge to justify every move, every emotion, every choice? What if you could sit with the discomfort of being misunderstood and let it pass right through you? There's a kind of freedom most people never taste because they're too busy chasing clarity, too afraid to be misread. But what if your peace didn't depend on being seen correctly? What if your silence wasn't a void to fill but a message in itself? When you stop explaining who you are and just live it, your energy shifts. And so does the way the world responds to you. Suddenly people lean in, not because you demanded attention, but because you made them curious. You stop existing for applause and start radiating authority, not the kind that intimidates, but the kind that stabilizes. And in that quiet steadiness, everything finds its place. Because the day you stop broadcasting your worth and start simply embodying it, that's the day everything begins to orbit around you. Not because you said so, because you didn't need to. If that hit something real inside you, there's more waiting. Watch the next video on your screen, and thank you for being a part of Mosaic Mind.